Yeah, well, hi, I'm MarBeth Dunn with the Having It All show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious. And speaking of rich and conscious, here's GP Walsh, the Irreverent Sage.
Hey, everybody.
So we're here to talk to you about happiness, why it's so important not to worry. And what are your thoughts on that, G?
Well, if you really understood where worry came from, it would make it a whole lot easier to go. Because it's a habit. We get so used to doing it, we don't think we actually have a choice in the matter. And in fact, you have a real big choice in the matter. Worry is simply, sometime a while ago, especially when you're having an experience when you're kids, if there's something in your environment that's troublesome, especially if it's coming from your parents, that makes you have to anticipate what might be happening to keep yourself invisible or quiet.
And safe.
And safe, because it's all about safety.
All about safety.
Everything you feel that you feel like is blocking you or sabotaging you is simply your nervous system that has adopted a posture in your environment to try to keep you safe because it thinks there's danger there. And so worry is one of those things. Somewhere along the idea, you got trained to think that if you can think about the bad things that might happen, what could go wrong, that somehow that would keep you safe. Well, it doesn't. I mean, obviously there's nothing to that whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the only thing it keeps you from doing is actually feeling safe. So you're in the constant state of seeking safety rather than actually being safe. So even when you are safe, you don't know
feel it. Yeah.
You don't feel it. So you end up your whole life chasing something that is actually immediately present when you recognize that what's happening is simply a phenomena of the nervous system. When you realize that, first off, it's not you. You're not broken. There's not something inherently wrong with you. It's just a pattern that's got set up.
Right.
And then what happens is you get a certain amount of distance. Now it doesn't have to be that way. Worry becomes a choice at that moment instead of something that mandatory for you, which it has been when it's a habit, right? But suddenly it's not me. This is a habit that's going on, which means that, oh wow, I have some space. I can decide whether I'm going to indulge this or not. I can take this moment and put my attention somewhere else because I'm no longer grabbed by it. Because the first step is get the space. There's no choice until there's space. And for most of us, these habitual patterns are instantaneous.
Yeah.
We don't realize
we go immediately into reaction mode.
Right. We don't realize that there is a gap there. It's just really, really small. But the more attention that goes there, that gap gets wider and wider. And suddenly, the event happening in my immediate reaction, or my habitual, in the case of worry, always reacting to the thoughts of what might happen in the future, suddenly it isn't imminent. It doesn't have to happen. That's when you begin to experience emotional and spiritual freedom. And physical freedom too, because you can do different things. You can make different choices.
And that's so important because it's all about choice, right?
It's all about choice, right?
And you can choose to be happy.
Yes, it's all about choice. And to choose to be happy is simply choose to this isn't Pollyanna, right? I'm not saying,
it's not.
It's not like always think of the bright side of life, right? It's not like that. It's a very real way of addressing the habitual patterns in your life. And you see that where you give your attention is going to have the effect on what comes after that, because your nervous system is going to react to wherever your attention is. So
that's very true.
When your attention is focused on what the bad that might happen, of course your nervous system's going, bad's going to happen. Got to prepare. Got to get set. Got to get tense. Got to adopt it. But if you're saying, well, yes, that might happen, but we're going to focus our attention here, then suddenly your nervous system, the body, which is always in the present, right? It's never in the past. And it's just right here. It says, oh, everything's fine, and it begins to relax and act as if everything is fine. So the main thing to remember is this is a habit that you have learned. It's not who you are. It's not your natural state. You are not naturally worrisome or troubled. You're actually quite, if you look at a little kid, you can see what you're really like. Just curious, interested, engaged, fun, playful.
Yeah.
That's what you're really like underneath all of this conditioning.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
You're magnificent. And you can always choose to be peaceful. Always. Every instant you have a choice. So when you start to feel yourself getting all tense and upset and worried.
Worried.
Worried. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so worried.
Even if you don't feel like you have a choice, Because
You
it
do.
won't feel like you have a choice.
But you do.
Because it's habitual. But you do. You actually do. Just put your attention there. Recognize where that's headed. Bring the attention back. Give yourself some space. And then move it somewhere else. It's the only choice you have to make is to just change your focus for a second.
Yep.
The rest
And
will
that
really take care of
willingness
itself.
also, that
Yes.
willingness, so maybe I could see this a different way. Maybe there's another way I could look at this. Maybe it's not so bad. What if I could see it differently?
Yeah.
You know, you just play with it, and you're gonna stop worrying.
You'll find the space. And
You're
the
gonna
worry
be
will go.
happy.
The worry will go away. It won't seem like it's necessary anymore, right? Because the reality is, worry has never ever protected you from anything,
No.
right? It doesn't do anything. It is simply the state. It's literally a physiological state of the body that is prepared for something that's imminent, something that's about to happen.
Yeah.
But in fact, the thing that's imminent is only in your mind. It doesn't
Yeah.
actually exist out here.
And the stress of worrying can totally affect your health in such negative ways. Everything from loss of sleep to raising your blood pressure. It even can create type 2 diabetes. It's so important.
Stress is the number one ailment of modern society. It's the number one disease, and that's where it comes from. Just getting into this an anticipation of something going wrong when there's actually nothing going wrong. So it's really you're not broken. Number one thing to remember: there's nothing wrong with you.
Yes.
You're perfectly fine. But you have been trained to respond to the circumstances in certain ways, and we need to just adjust that training so the response is always progressive, it's always uplifting, it's always freeing, and the responses that are just like more tight, more narrative, full of stress, they become less and less until they literally cease to exist. And yes, that is a possibility. Completely stress-free,
Absolutely.
in a state of contentment all the time. It is possible.
So here we are, MarBeth Dunn and GP Walsh, with the Having It All show. We're going to have a regular audio interview with
Right.
G in the next month or so.
Right.
You're going to watch, but that could be sooner, actually. Could be sooner. We've
It's
got
up
some
to you.
amazing people scheduled for
You have
interviews.
an amazing lineup of people that she's been interviewing on just being prosperous, on being wealthy, on being free, and most importantly, being conscious, because that's where it all comes from.
Yep, rich and conscious. You can do it, and we can help.